Guys, welcome on into Three Bowl Takes. I am Freddie. I'm joined by Quinn here. And this is sort of an emergency kind of video here. Brian Kelly has been dismissed by LSU today. There had been talks about team meetings and administrators, boosters, and all that stuff meeting all day today. And finally, we got word maybe 12 minutes ago that Brian Kelly has been dismissed as head coach for the LSU Tigers. Quinn, what do you make of this? Do you agree with it? Where do they go next? I just need your thoughts on everything.
I mean, look, I think this was kind of one of those. If you were in the know, you kind of saw this as a possibility. Brian Kelly made it abundantly clear that he's all in. He's been that fan base has really been at odds with Kelly since like the midpoint of the 2023 season.
Hmm.
2022 is year one. They're giving him a break. They didn't really like his vibe, but he won the West, so in year one. But then you underperform with Jaden Daniels in 23, underperform again in 24, put all the eggs in the basket with Garrett Nussmeier for 5. It looks like you're going to be good, but then lo and behold, Florida and Clemson are both trash, so those wins mean nothing. And now you're playing your top game with Ole Miss and A&M, and Ole Miss beat you worse than the scoreboard says. Vandy beats you, which, look, this ain't your mama's Vandy team,
But
but it doesn't change the perception to an LSU fan or any of the. If you're a fan of Alabama, LSU, Georgia, you see that Vandy logo, right or wrong, expect to beat that team every time you play them. It doesn't matter what players are on that field. It's going to take years of Vandy doing good for that perception to change. It's going to take and I know people laugh about this considering he's on the hot seat. It's going to take a Stoops at Kentucky level year after year being competitive, upsetting teams type run for Clark Lee before people start taking Vandy seriously. All right. So you lose the Vandy game, and then you turn around and get just throttled by Texas A&M. That was embarrassing.
yeah.
18-14 at half. You score a touchdown to get 25 points when you're down 49-18. That is rough. And, I
Hmm.
had some people saying, like, oh, I saw this fire incoming when they were chanting fire Brian Kelly or fire Kelly in the stadium. For those of you who think that, I want to point out that was just the ultimate troll job. There weren't any LSU fans in the stadium at that point. That was this group of drunk Texas A&M fans chanting "Fire Kelly" just to rub salt in the wound of LSU in their own state. That's how badly you got whipped. Now I want you to think about it. I'm not surprised he's fired. Let's be real. LSU has a high standard. I don't think any team in the SEC has a higher standard than LSU other than Alabama. And that comes from the Saban run, right?
Hmm.
Your two biggest home games of the last 2 years was at home at night against Alabama in 2024, and you get throttled and embarrassed, and your stadium is empty halfway through the fourth quarter. And it happened again this year, but to Texas A&M. Now A&M's good, but you've made a point of just whipping up on A&M for the most part of their time being in the conference,
Hmm.
and especially when they come to Baton Rouge. I knew he was done when he lost that game. I knew he wasn't coming back. He doesn't mesh well with the local media. He doesn't mesh well with the fan base. The fan base is sold out on him, and you have the buyout high. But I saw a really good question posed this morning before the news broke that he was going to be fired. Is the buyout higher than the amount of money you're going to lose from the fans just not being invested anymore? Because they're done with him. LSU fans are ride or die until they decide that they don't like you anymore, and they will not show up again until they get a guy they can ride or die with again.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised at the news.
I think it's been well documented, Quinn, that me and you both do not like Brian Kelly. Um, and
I was an avid defender for a while, but I jumped off the ship last year.
yeah, and that's what I'm getting at is he left a Notre Dame team to come to LSU, which by the way, when that news broke, that was one of the more surprising coach hires and or transfers, if you will, that I remember, because you're talking about a Notre Dame team that year finished number 5 in the AP poll. Like,
Yeah,
people don't realize that. It's not like he had a bad year at Notre Dame and was like, "Yep, time to jump ship." No, they were top 5 in the AP poll at the end of the season once the national title and everything was done. And he leaves to go to LSU, and normal circumstances you would think, okay, that's a good move for Brian Kelly, right? That's a good move for LSU. You go out and you get a coach that historically is always 10-2 at Notre Dame, which, by the way, we joke a lot on Notre Dame for their strength of schedule and how they don't, they're not in a conference and this and that. But it's not like they also go out and schedule a bunch of nobodies minus their rivals. Like, they're playing Big Ten teams, they're playing ACC teams. So as much as we talk about them not being in a conference, whatever.
not to mention they're also traveling across the country all
Correct.
season long.
Correct. And so for LSU and Brian Kelly, that was an out of the park hire to me. With what was available, with people you thought you might could get, he was not ever on the list. But I tell you when it went downhill for me, and that was the first introductory, I guess, appearance at the basketball game when he threw on that fake Southern accent. That's when I
Family.
knew, yeah, family. That like that's when I knew that this was going downhill and downhill fast,
Yeah,
because LSU fans do not tolerate that. If you're not Cajun or Southern or whatever, but you win football games, they have no problem with you.
Les
Just look
Miles.
at Nick Saban and Les Miles. They have no problem. But if you come in faking who you are and trying to fit into their culture, and you're losing ball games, they want your head on a stick. And that's what happened. I'm not surprised he's fired. I knew that it would happen at some point, especially if they had another loss like Texas A&M last night. Now, you brought up the Alabama game last year. I thought that game is what put him on the hot seat,
It
because you
was.
just cannot do that against one of your rivals. Now, the question is, where does Brian Kelly go from here? Because you leave a top 5 team at Notre Dame because you think you're better than they are, and you go down to LSU, who should be a top 5 program in the country every single year, and it's an abysmal performance. It doesn't work out. Where do you go from here if you're Brian Kelly?
Well, I want to start with, and just to finish on this point, and then I'll tell you where you go. He put, for anyone who wants to defend, like, oh, well, he's done good and they got rid of him even though he's done good. No, he put high expectations on himself.
Uh huh.
He left Notre Dame, and his reasoning was, I can't win a championship here, but I'll do it at LSU. And every coach they've hired since Saban up until Kelly has won a national title,
Mm hmm.
usually all relatively quickly into their coaching careers there.
Mm hmm.
So yeah, no, you put high expectations on yourself and you woefully unachieved them. As far as where you go, I kind of like Brian Kelly at Oklahoma State or Virginia Tech. I think
Wow, how bad they fall. Wow.
look, well, I just look who's open right now. Penn State. If you hire Brian Kelly, why the heck did you get rid of James Franklin?
You're right.
Okay. Florida, Arkansas, the Auburn job when it inevitably opens up, because there's no way Hugh Freeze is going to be the coach there at the end of this year. None of them are going to touch the guy, because all of those fan bases are equally mad about the fake Southern accent stuff. And they all look at LSU and go, man, if you couldn't get it done at LSU, you're definitely not going to get it done here.
Yeah.
Because whether they admit it or not, they all know that LSU is a better program than them. That's right, Florida fans. LSU's a better job than you. No offense.
Yes.
Um, I think you take a step down. I think you take a step down where you're allowed to be a program builder guy. And I think he'll do super well. I think he could do super, super well, especially in the Big 12, where winning at the Big 12 is just building a program and winning with your guys and your system. Right? Like that's
Mm-hmm.
what Big 12 football is right now. So look at BYU. Sione Taki is like the face of that. But yeah, I see him at one of those job openings, or if another one similar to that opens, which there's the possibility. That's where I see him landing.
What about Arkansas?
No,
No?
No, I think if you're Arkansas, you go after someone
Petrino.
who inspires confidence. No, I was just say someone who inspires confidence. I really like Rhett Lash for the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Arkansas job. Like that's the guy I've got circled for that job.
And I want to issue a stern warning to all of these schools with head coaches that have a possibility of getting let go. I'm looking at you, Florida State. Um, when a guy like Brian Kelly becomes available, and we saw this with James Franklin, um, schools tend to pull triggers once a guy that they think could be up to their caliber becomes available. And I think that's why. Now, granted, Florida also waited and fired Billy Napier before the bye week so they can have a full week. So that also makes sense. However, I don't think it was a coincidence that James Franklin gets fired, then all of a sudden Billy Napier gets fired. Once they realize, okay, there is somebody else that we could get down here, that is a big enough name that could win us some ball games. And now with Brian Kelly gone, what if Florida State becomes open? And
That
and
would
and, and what if Mike Norvell is the next guy out because they're tired of him, they're ready to move on, like he hasn't been able to live up to expectations minus 1 year that he overachieved.
well, I'll tell you what that is. That's the Florida Gators' worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm.
The Florida job was the best job open until this LSU firing.
Correct.
Now, in my opinion, it went from the best to the third best. That might sound odd, but I think it was the best SEC job, which made it the best job.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's the second best SEC job, so I put it behind Penn State. I think that Penn State, because of the LSU opening, now jumps ahead of Florida as a more likely candidate to get a top tier coach. If Florida State opens up, I think that's another job that leapfrogs Florida because of LSU. If LSU doesn't fire Kelly, Florida stays at the top and they're fine. But now I
Yeah.
think Florida, if Florida State fires their Mike Norvell, which is a high probability, Florida's going to drop to like fourth in the job hunt.
And 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 I mentioned this before we started recording. I feel bad because Florida continues to get put on the back burner when it comes to these high profile head coaches. And listen, like you could tell me that Billy Napier was their guy from the start, whatever. But at some point, they're going to get a good head coach. And the only question is now it sucks because the job opening pool is so much wider now that they're not the one job that you would leave an Ole Miss for. It's LSU.
I don't feel bad though because they knew they wanted to. Everyone in that program knew they wanted to fire Billy Napier last year,
Mm-hmm.
except for the athletic director. He didn't listen to the people around him, and they could have had name your coach. They could have had freaking anybody last year because there was no job opening. They wait a year for no reason, get the exact same result they've been getting for the last 4 years, pull the trigger now, and now they're way down the cut. It's their own fault.
By the way, I'm pretty sure the Florida athletic director is an interim athletic director at the moment.
Well,
Um,
I'm talking about the guy who. Oh, you're saying yeah. I see
so
what you're saying.
so it's kind of hard to make a decision and do that when you have a guy like that, um, or it may be an interim president. It's one of the two, and so that there could have been some pushbacks for that reason for waiting a year. But I agree with you. Like you waited too long. Like you sat on the pot too long and missed your chance. You know, like missed your
I,
flight. And
I'm
here
just
here we
saying
are.
nobody in that program liked Napier, like out around the program. It
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just people deep inside that liked him. And you had the chance to go ahead and pull the trigger when you had a vote of complete no confidence, and you could have named your coach. And now you're in a situation where you're way down the totem pole.
Yeah.
Florida fans will tell you they're still the best job on the market, but they're and maybe I'm wrong for my theory here about now Penn State leapfrogs them. It's just the way I see it is there's going to be coaches who now look at it and go, well, if I can't go get the LSU job, the SEC, do I want to take the Florida job or do I want to go take the Penn State job where I just got one or two teams each year that are going to be really good? Or do I
It
want to take the
does.
Florida State job where I'm like automatically one of the best programs in the ACC every year.
It does sound like that whoever Florida hires now, or if you are a head coach that's looking for a new job, you do feel like you're settling if you go to Florida, no matter where you come from, instead of getting the LSU or Penn State job. So I kind of I hear where you're coming from, and I don't disagree with that. But I think that I don't know, man. This is the wildest off season when it comes to coaches being
Oh yeah.
fired or being hired. I guess they've already been fired, but being hired that I've ever seen that's ever happened. Like it's going to be like next year, it's going to be unrecognizable as far as a lot of these big programs and who the head coach is. So we're going to just issue an apology right now that we're probably going to forget who the head coach is at some of these teams to come next year. And I'm not talking about the big ones. I'm talking about the teams that the Florida head coach and the LSU head coach left. Those teams, those are the ones that we're going to have a hard
Yeah.
time remembering because nobody talks about that.
Yeah. It's like, oh, who's the coach at SMU now that Rhett Lashley's gone? I don't know.
Correct. It's like it's
Yeah.
stuff
Yeah.
like that. Like people look at the big jobs, but what about? And that's another thing is that all these head coaches are going to leave other schools to go to the new openings. Well, then you have to refill those jobs, but
Don't get
then
me
you have
started
to
on
refill the
coordinators
other
leaving
job.
major.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't even
I mean, we
don't
could.
get me
I mean,
started on
Joe Brady could
coordinators
be a
leaving.
head coach at one of these small at one of these small schools. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and here's the other thing, just to put a bow on this. I think what really does Kelly in is he is now in back-to-back weeks lost to former assistant.
That's tough.
Got out coached by Clark Lee and Mike Elko
That's
in back to
tough.
back. That's tough.
Yeah, and not only did he get out coached, his teams they just got outmanned, and that there was no fire. There's never any fire with LSU under Brian Kelly as far as like personnel wise. Like they
Yeah.
have a hard time getting up for games. Like it's not like they go out and they obliterate teams that they should beat like they used to. Now, granted, this year nobody's doing that in the SEC. It's all like a lot of it is 6 to 10 point
Texas A&M.
wins. Yeah, and we need to actually talk about that about A&M and how they're just they should be the number one team in the country, but based on their resume. But that's another video for another day. I'm Freddie. Been joined by Quinn here and Brian Kelly. You no longer have a job. Good luck, my friend, and LSU fans. I really hope that you do get a good head coach because I feel for you. And we as college football fans miss a LSU program being at the very tip top. So we hope you get a good head coach. Three Bold Takes is with you guys. Let us know down below your thoughts, reactions to the Brian Kelly news, who LSU should hire, where Brian Kelly will go next. Subscribe and like as always. We'll see you guys next time.